Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well and staying safe wherever in the world you may be. And I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm your host, Nicholas Ferroni. I'm currently in my 17th year as a high school history teacher, 17 years. As a kid, I wanted to be a superhero, an actor, a comedian, a philosopher, an activist, a lawyer, psychologist, and a philanthropist. So instead, I just became a teacher. We do all those things. And welcome to Back to School. This is a live series where I literally take your favorite athletes, entertainers, and celebrities back to school. Well, at least back to their school days. And we dive into their younger selves, as well as share stories of the educators who impacted their life, and all to support Clear the List Foundation, which is an organization which helps teachers fulfill their supply lists. Because obviously many of you know teachers do invest in their classrooms, and this year teachers will be investing now more than ever. So thank you so much for joining us. And let's get right to it. Let me introduce our superstar panelist. First up, he's a trailblazer, the epitome of what it means to be a pride-fighting superstar. We have WWE veteran, AKA Darren Young, who just happens to have graduated from the high school I currently teach at. What's up, Fred? What's up, Darren? Next up, we have Knockouts champion herself, the virtuosa, Deonna Purrazzo.
Hi, Nick.
Hello,
how are you?
hello. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for going back to school. It's literally back to school. This is where I'm teaching from. All right. Now, I'd love to introduce WWE superstar, philanthropist, and author, Mr. Titus O'Neill. Titus.
What's going on, man?
Yeah. What's going on, man? Thank you so much. I know you're coming from vacation, so thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next up, I'd like to welcome Friday Night SmackDown correspondent and host of WWE's The Bump, Kayla Braxton.
Hello.
Hey. If you guys don't know this is my teacher voice. This is the closest thing to a ring announcer I could do. So my teacher voice and my ring announcer voice are pretty much the same.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you, thank you. And last but not least, let's welcome Mr. Manny Ramirez. But you guys know him as WWE's Kalisto, who's coming to us live from traffic in Florida. What's up? What's up? What's going on?
You gotta click your little mute buttons, guys. Kalisto.
This is what it's like to be a teacher. This is what it's like to be a teacher.
Ah.
Yeah.
What's up? What's up?
Stuck here in traffic, but hey, man, I'm here live and ready to go.
And we want to stress that you're not driving, just so the audience doesn't think you're.
Yes,
Yeah.
my wife is driving. I'm not. I'm cool, chilling here. You know, wife vibing on the wind here in a little bit. So it's all good.
Perfect. And more importantly,
Yeah.
since my school's going back virtually, this is definitely good practice for me. I'm just curious on which one of you is going to be the kid who shouts out or raises their hand to interrupt me every time I start. I don't know. I'm thinking, Kalisto, does that seem like you to shout out in the middle of class? Is that type of kid you were as a student?
Oh yeah. There you go.
All right.
Hey,
Well,
man, it's all good.
obviously we're all here, and thank you so much again for spending this time with us. We're here to help educators, and we're going back to school. We all know what that experience was like. For the most part, I would say as a kid, it's like you're excited about it. This year, I think it's a whole different scenario because of what we're in. But let's get right into, helping teachers. Let's talk about teachers. So I'll do what I do in class. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I will call on you guys individually. I hope this doesn't cause any anxiety from your teenage years. But the first question I do want to ask, because we have a lot of teachers obviously watching, and I always like to think behind every celebrity and every superstar in general, every successful person is often a teacher who kind of believes in them. So who was a teacher who impacted you, and kind of share why they meant so much to you? And I'll start, as I see it on my screen, I'm sorry, Deonna.
Oh, I didn't expect to go first. I definitely.
I'm sorry.
My high school gym teacher, Mr. Muscatello, is still a friend of mine. We still text back and forth when I go home. He's someone I make sure I go stop and see. And he was just someone who I had this crazy dream of being a wrestler since I was young, and he was someone who always was like, okay, let's get in the weight room, let's train you, like, you know, he really believed in me. So you know, going through high school from my freshman year to my senior year, he was someone who, you know, wrote a college letter of recommendation for me, and someone that really you know, led me on the right path to college and then, you know, wrestling ultimately.
That's incredible. 'Cause, again, like hearing a high school teacher said, I want to be a professional wrestler, and his first instinct was like, hey, let's get to work. You could do it. I mean, that's incredible. God,
yeah.
such a
Luckily,
great story.
he was also the wrestling coach for our high school, so it kind of coincided, and it was definitely up his alley. And now he has kids who are WWE fans, and, you know, we just have that in common now. So he was definitely like, if I had to pick a teacher, that's the first person who comes to mind.
Amazing. Oh, thank you. All right, Titus, who was a teacher who impacted you?
It was a teacher by the name of Lynn Roy. I speak about her in my book, There's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, available on Amazon. She was a teacher that actually was not my teacher, but she saw something in me at one point and had sent a note around to all the teachers saying that because I was a bit of a class clown and wanted to come to school late, I'll come to class late and make grand entrances, which is cool because I actually get paid now to make grand entrances. And she had sent a letter around saying that, you know, if he comes to class late for my teacher to write me up and send me to the office. And so my principal at the time, Miss Payne, said, you know why you're continuously in here, right? And I said, I guess because I'm late. Said, no, because Ms. Roy sent a letter to all the teachers and said that if you're late, that they needed to send you to the office. And I said, but Ms. Roy ain't even my teacher. How can she get me in trouble if she's not even my teacher? And I ended up having a conversation with Ms. Roy, and she said, you know, you have a very bright light inside of you, and there are a lot of people that are going to be attracted to you throughout your life. And I want to make sure that one thing that you understand is that people will follow you, but you got to be on time. And once you show up and you show up on time, that's the first sign that people can take you seriously about anything that you do in life. And I fortunately got a chance to speak to her after years from graduating high school in a random phone call with a random meeting. And I never got a chance to thank her, you know, personally after high school graduation. And luckily a friend of a friend was best friends with her that I did not know that lives in Tampa, and put me on the phone at dinner. And I ended up breaking out into tears just right there on the spot, because I never got a chance to tell her how much of a significant impact that she made on my life. And so Miss Lynn Roy would definitely be that person that changed my life as a teacher and gave me an understanding of how valuable teachers are to our society. I always say that teachers are the most valued asset in the world, and time and time again they prove that to be right, and the government proves that statement is right too, because of taking funding away.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're. And it's funny. It's like I always say, as a high school teacher, I get to see my former students, kind of like Fred and people like that, right away. An elementary school teacher has to wait like 30 years to find out if they did a good job or not. I know, you got to be patient. Kayla, who is a teacher who impacted you, and why?
Do guidance counselors count?
Absolutely. Everybody who interacts with youth is an educator. And I mean, the lunch lady was more beloved at my school than I was. So because anybody who interacts with kids.
Yeah, definitely. I think my guidance counselor, when I was like in the 3rd grade, it's crazy because I was trying to, like, when you asked us to come up with somebody, I haven't talked to her since the 3rd grade. I honestly can't even remember her name, but I just remember the situation. Titus and I have a very similar background, but I grew up in a very broken home. And I was always afraid to kind of speak out. And if something bad happened at home, I was afraid to say anything because I didn't want to get in trouble. And finally one day she pulled me aside because she could tell something was up. And I finally got to just, for the first time, tell her what was going on at home. And she from there was able to, you know, contact the people she needed to contact. But that was probably the first time in my life I used my voice and felt like it was okay to speak up. So, I mean, I love that story of Titus's, because I would love to track her down one day. And like, I think that was the beginning of my journey to realize like, hey, I'm powerful, I'm strong, and I can talk and speak my truth and do something about it. So that's probably like the biggest influence as far as creating the person that is here today.
But that's amazing, and it's so interesting. As kids, it's like one voice, one positive word could change our entire path or trajectory. All right, Kalisto, who was the teacher who impacted your life? And were they the ones who told you, obviously, to wear the masks that you wear and the performance that you do?
No, his wife. No.
Yeah, that's it. Oh man, but yeah. You know what? I had many teachers that impacted me, but I can definitely remember my teachers, my coaches, actually, that impacted me the most. When I was a football player, I was the shortest lineman, and my coaches did not believe that I can block my opponents, like when I was on the field. So because of my coaches, they gave me inspiration. They made me believe within myself that I could block that 6'2" pounder, 300 pounds. And I did. So because of them, they made me push myself to the limit. And without me noticing, like, wow, I can go above and beyond. So because of them, they made me realize that if I push myself harder, how far can I go? So since then, when I was in high school, wrestling was always on my mind. I did football, I did wrestling, Greco-Roman. I was even on the chess team. I was even in water polo. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. So I was always active because I wasn't allowed to go outside and play with my friends or anybody because I grew up in the tough neighborhood, the south side of Chicago. So since it was a tough neighborhood, I was always trying to stay active as much as I can. And because of my coaches, they pushed me to the limit, and them telling me, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't block this big dude. So because of them saying, I can't, I showed them and I proved to them that I could block them. I can do it. And I proved them wrong. And because of them, now that's where I am, where I want to be in professional wrestling, in WWE, living my dream as a professional wrestler, as Kalisto. So now I'm living my dream because not only that, I've been told too that I was never gonna be a professional wrestler because of them saying I can. It motivated me to push myself to the limit, give myself that how do you say that positivity that I can go above and beyond. And those coaches, my football coaches, made me realize that, and they made me push myself to above and beyond. And because of them, I'm like, wow, man, if it wasn't for that, them pushing me, telling me that I can't block this big dude, and I did, that made me realize to myself that, man, if I can do this, I can do anything. So it's pretty cool. And it made me realize too, like, and I still having contact with my coaches every now and then. They have families. They're all like proud of me. They're fans of WWE. They could not believe that I'm there, this and that. But just the fact of me still having contact with them and them telling me that they're so proud of me that they never thought I could be in WWE, because I've always talked about being a professional wrestler, being in WWE. That's always been my long life dream. And for them telling me is like, wow, I cannot believe it. Us telling you that you can't do this, you can't do that, and proving them wrong, that was like a big win for me, because I love when people tell me, even when Titus tells me, hey, man, you can't block me. Oh, dude, Titus, man, I know I can block you, dude. I just got to work on my stance, but I know I can block you, though.
It's easy to say. Yeah, I wish we were in person. Just be it should have a whole different ending if we were there together in person.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
But no, that's actually what made me motivated. It motivated me to go above and beyond, and it made me realize, like, man, we have one life. We gotta live it up. And plus, we gotta like show how good we are, and whatever that we are good in life, be education, it could be anything you want, and that's my motivation to show the world that if you're good at something, just go on and do it, man. You know?
You said it best. You have one life to live. Rejection's a lot easier to live with than regret.
Exactly. I've been rejected so much. I've been told that you can't do this, you can't do that. Man, I love showing people wrong. That's
absolutely.
my motivation. Oh yeah.
That's great. Fred, Mr. Rosser, so since I teach at the high school I went to, which educator, and I know you would say me even though I wasn't your actual teacher, but excluding me, who was never your teacher anyway, which educator, I think I know, but which educator who played a big part in your life and the reason you come back to the high school and say hi so often?
You know, Mr. Ferroni, I want to cry my eyes out because I felt literally like this was like a summer school project where I had to get some of my closest friends in the wrestling business to share their story. So I just want to say that, like, I'm just trying to keep it together here. But I would have to say, you know, before wrestling, television production was a number one love of mine. So I would have to go with Karen Gainey. So she would allow me at the time to watch VHS tapes in the back control room of wrestling because I was just so fascinated about the business. And, you know, she always supported me, and I was head of the video yearbook. So I put some of my wrestling highlights in the video yearbook, and I was so confident that I was gonna, you know, eventually make it to WWE. My high school yearbook, the last sentence said, WWF, here I come. So I knew right out of high school that it was gonna be my dream to be a WWE superstar. But I always say that my fight is much more bigger than in the ring. It's outside of the ring, fighting bigotry and hatred, and always trying to be the voice of the voiceless when it comes to not only the LGBTQ community, but anyone that gets bullied into silence. That's why I always go back to where it all started for me, Union Township, New Jersey, to speak to the kids. Now, this is something new. Some of my friends in the business tagged on. I've got the best tag team partners in the world to be a part of this. You know, this is the new now. So however we got to take the situation that we're dealt with, we got to turn it into a positive. And I can't thank everyone else for joining me on this. So this isn't about me. This is about my friends.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, all those stories give me the chills, and I appreciate them so much. And I'm sure they're so relatable to so many people in our audience. We have a little question we're going to ask too. So now, since a lot of teachers are watching, if you were a teacher, what subject would you teach and why? This is from our chat. So this is a viewer question. So I'll start. We'll go back to the same. I hate to do this, Deonna. We'll go back to the same. Well, so if there was, I mean, again, offhand, if you were a teacher, what subject would you teach and why? Very simply put.
I would teach history, which I'm actually in college for now. So I'm actually back in school. So it's funny how this all works. I'm going into my third semester back in university. So I'm going for history education.
Whatever you need. If you want to chat outside, you could be my celebrity substitute anytime you want.
Oh, thank you.
Best subject in the world to teach. I hate to say it. History and cultural studies. Best subjects to teach. All right, Titus.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Titus.
No, that's okay. I agree.
Titus, what subject would you teach and why?
Well, I wouldn't be in the classroom.
No.
I actually, my master's degree is in administrative education, and I knew that eventually football or sports in general would be done for me. So I wanted to get something where I can stay involved with sports because I wanted to be an athletic director, and I know that most people that don't coach, you know, coaches get fired all the time, but athletic directors end up holding on to their jobs a lot longer. And I would kind of still be able to be a head coach, but kind of all the sports. But if I were like in a high school or something like that, I just want to be a dean of students, and I want to bring back corporal punishment where I can
That's it.
Like, so these kids are lying.
Your kids are gonna go home and be like, my principal body slammed me. My principal body slammed me today. Well, that's what you get. Mess with Mr. O'Neill. He body slams you. Oh God. So administration.
Yeah, but no, I would want to be a part of administration just because I just feel like sometimes as a teacher, you're kind of really confined to your subject or your space. And, in some cases, even as an administrator, you're kind of at the liberty of whatever your state government, presides as far as funding and testing. Like, at Florida, I hate the fact that these kids they're learning how to take a test. They're not actually learning how to learn. Yeah. And in a lot of states that are that way. And some people are just not really good test takers. So I'd like to be on the administrative side so that I can hopefully push legislature that will allow teachers to actually teach and not to prepare somebody for a state standardized test and then impact their funding because their kids can't pass the test.
I will join you in that cause. As I tell people, if we were to evaluate Jimi Hendrix and Beethoven on a standardized test, we would have never known they were geniuses.
Yep.
Everyone's passionate about something. All right, Kayla, so when you come to visit my school, what subject will you want to teach my students and why?
I was bad at every single subject in school, so I don't think I should.
Not.
But I will say, I'm gonna preface this. Well, that wasn't in school, that was in college. But I'll preface this with just saying, this is not to toot my own horn. I'm gonna say this before I say what I'm gonna say. I did graduate as valedictorian, okay? However, I was in special ed in elementary school, not because I was an idiot, sometimes, but not because I was dumb, but it's because coming from a broken home, school wasn't a priority. There was no one there. Yeah, I was acting out. And so that's another one. My special ed teacher noticed that. She's like, okay, this girl's not dumb. Obviously, there's something going on at home. And I think a lot of kids are put into that situation where they are in special education and are kind of written off. And I would love to be in that classroom and find that untapped potential in these kids and show them listen, I was in special ed and look where I've gotten now. So I think that's what I would kind of want to do is work with those kids.
That's such an amazing story. I have a college acceptance letter on my wall from Penn State from a student who was labeled special ed who shouldn't have been. So I fought to get her out. They said you wouldn't get in Penn State. When she got accepted, she gave it to me, so I did frame. But again,
awesome.
But that's such a great story and such a great reason why when it comes to kids, how so many kids get misdiagnosed or labeled when in fact they're just not put an opportunity to succeed. I'm very curious to hear Kalisto's answer.
Oh Lord!
What would you want to teach? What if it's something like cooking or something like that? Very, very off the mark.
Home ec like a mother.
Home ec, yeah.
Oh, is Kalisto frozen?
And he's muted again.
Oh, you're muted.
The subject will be home.
Public speaking would not be public speaking.
Good. All right. So I would love, besides cooking, I would love to teach them art. Why?
Aww.
Because I would love to see how artistic they can be. Me, I was a life skills instructor for the mentally disabled, and their reward always was, okay, what's your favorite cartoon character? And I would draw them. You could see the light of their eyes, just wow, amazing, just anything. And I have a passion of drawing. So I would love to teach your kids, okay, you guys like wrestling. If you don't, either way, create your own mask.
Ooh.
And on your mask, you can have any design. It could be a nice, beautiful wing, or it could be a tiger or something symbolic that you would like on your mask. So from there, I will have them create their own mask by design, because like that, when their mask is done, it means it's meaningful and it has a symbolic meaning for them. So not only they will show their artistic side, they will learn that their own mask means more than anything. More, it's a value. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to teach the world and kids, that it's not just a mask. It's a mask that represents you. It's a symbol that represents you. So that's a message, and that's something I would like to teach kids, creating their own masks. It's not just a mask, it's a symbol that represents you. What is your mask that represents you? It could be anything. So that's an idea and something I would like to do in the future, to sit down and show kids that it's not just a mask. It's a symbol. You know, you can make this mask will represent you. And when they do wear it, it's not just a hero mask. It's that person. It's that person who created it. And so it's going to be more symbolic. It's going to be more meaningful. And that's something I would like to teach kids. And
you could come by my school anytime you want, Kalisto. Our teacher is amazing. She would love to have you as a guest art teacher.
Nick, I'm starting to think you paying Kalisto a whole lot of money because he's giving us every bit of his answer.
But it goes back to what you said too. And to me, it's like if you test the kids, every kid's a genius if you test their strengths. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And we live in a society that we have standardized tests, but life's not multiple choice, it's open-ended. And again, like I love history, but we cut the art programs when to me, it's like, I haven't used calculus in 20 years. I listen to music every day. No offense to my math teachers, it's absolutely necessary, but we value different things that I think should be, we kind of have to switch up. I'm very curious to hear Fred's answer. What would you want to teach, Fred?
Oh, man.
See, there's no one that knows me better than the big man. Physical educational teacher. As a kid growing up, I was overweight and I had a speech impediment. And just to hear Kayla's story about being special education. As a young kid, I was in special ed classes and I always hid in the classroom because I was afraid people would look at me differently. So to hear Kayla share her story about being special ed, it's just like we have something in common. So that's something that's my takeaway out of this get together with some of my closest friends. But I would definitely say a gym teacher because, at this point in my career, I can't drop any news right now until the major organization that I've been working with does, but I've been keeping everything nice and loose because if you don't use it, you lose it. So physical fitness, gym class, I would be a dynamite gym teacher. Everyone would love me.
Honestly, I shared a classroom with a gym teacher, and when it came to coaching sports and health, they were great. But once they started talking about the human anatomy, the awkwardness stepped up. It wasn't a fun time.
Yeah, Fred ain't gonna tell you nothing about no human anatomy.
All right, now we're gonna do a little fire question. I'm gonna ask you guys in one word. Since I'm a high school teacher, describe yourself in one word as a high school student. All right, we'll start with Deonna. One word, describe yourself. What characteristic would your teacher say if they were to describe you?
Quiet, I think.
Quiet? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Titus, what one word would your teachers describe you in high school?
Charismatic.
Charismatic. Nothing changes. That hasn't changed. Kayla, what one word would your teachers or somebody describe you? Or you would describe yourself?
I would just like distracted.
Yeah. Distracted? Okay.
Always.
Fair enough. Kalisto, one word to describe you as a teenager.
One word, Kalisto.
He's muted.
He's muted.
Kalisto.
Kalisto, you're muted.
Oh, come on. All right. What's another word for go-getter? Go-getter.
Ambitious.
Hustler. Ambitious, absolutely.
Ambitious.
Perfect. All right, before we're going to jump into some more questions just about you individually.
Wait, did Fred say
I'm sorry, Fred. I can't forget Fred.
Mr. Ferroni, but
Yeah, shy, and
shy. Big man would
Scared
say
as
that, shy, but
Yeah, Fred.
I learned so much. I learned so much from the big man. I learned so much from the big man about how to knock down doors and get yourself known, So I learned so much from him. He learned so much from me, but he would definitely say shy.
Shy, absolutely. Based on you describe yourself too, and it's always interesting. A lot of people who are shy, and it's funny because I feel like it's when you're put in a position. I'm a very introverted person. I'm very shy, but when I teach, it's like I feel like I have to perform. So I always feel like people in that performance aspect put on a show. All right, so. All right, first we're going to do another viewer question. what was your favorite part about being, so now we obviously heard some great stories about how people impacted you. What did you love about school? Because I ask my students honestly what they love and hate about school. What was one aspect you loved about school? And some of you obviously are going back to school as well. But what was something you loved about school? Like, what was something you look forward to besides lunch and recess and hanging out with your friends? Deonna, what was one thing you loved about school?
I think just like the learning. Especially because I was super into history, like I was super into like American lit and that kind of stuff.
In high school you were?
Yeah, like
okay.
Those were my two best subjects. I'm terrible at math and I was terrible at like biology and chemistry. And so I really gravitated towards like the reading aspect and like, I just really like to learn. Like I'm in for history now, but I'd love to go for so many other things and just like constantly stay a student. I just think that like aspect of like finding one subject you're really interested in and then learning everything you can about it. I become obsessed with stuff. So just that learning,
Amazing. Okay. I could definitely relate to that. Titus, what is one thing you loved about school, you loved about going to school?
The adults.
So the interaction with like the teachers and the educators and the mentors?
Yeah, once I realized that they were, not against me and that they were, one of Miss Roy actually said, the minute I stop talking to you is the minute you need to be concerned. And as long as I'm on your case, you're in a good place. And
I've said that a lot to my students. I said, once I stop asking and staying on you, I'm done caring, but I'm not there.
Yeah. So
that's
the adults just, like Kayla, and I came from a lot of trauma and a lot of people coming in and out and saying they love you one minute, then cussing you or abusing you one way or the other. And I never had that at school. I never had a teacher that, abused me in any kind of way. It was always a safe place for me.
That's the one thing I think I always stress to people is, people who are loved at home come to school to learn. People who aren't come to school to be loved. And it's like, and some students who are loved at home come to school for that extra nurturing. So, thank you for sharing that. Kayla, what was one thing you really loved about school?
Well, I think I want to piggyback off of Titus there and kind of what you just said. Like, I don't think, during this crazy time in the world right now, one of the first things that I thought about were the kids who are maybe in a domestically abusive household, who are now stuck at home all day with illegitimate parents, possibly, who are living a nightmare every day they can't escape from. When that was me as a young girl, going to school was that escape. My teachers were my friends and I felt safe around them. And that was again, like I was not a great student. I did fine at the end, but I wasn't a great student. So I can't really say there was a specific subject that I loved. I just loved being there because it was safe. It was safety, I guess. So
no, that makes perfect sense. Kalisto, what was one thing you loved about school or going to school in general?
Well, in general, I love being challenged, to be honest. Especially the teachers that took time and helped me with my homework. That goes way back from to the Boys and Girls Club, where I actually was there because I needed help with my homework. And they actually took time to help me out with my homework and just figuring out what was the problem and what I didn't get. And just the fact of taking time and helping me, and also my teachers challenging me, trying to see if I can get the problem or not. It's just the fact of being challenged and thinking like, okay, am I going to get this right? Or it made me busy. You know what I mean? On top of that, it made me push myself as a person too. And I like being challenged. And that's one thing that I always look forward to every day, even though like sometimes I'm like, oh man, I don't feel like going, but also when I'm there, it's like I'm focused, and it just the fact of me being challenged, it made me want to, like, what else can I learn? What else can I do for myself? So that's another thing too that made me realize, man, like if I can do this, I can do anything. So it gave me confidence within myself that I could do this problem and I could overcome this. I could pass this test if I study enough, So it made me confident, and they challenged me. So on top, like what I'm saying, like on top of that, like me growing up in a bad neighborhood, I couldn't go out much. So I tried to do my studies as much as I can and just trying to keep busy with after school programs. So because of that, me living in the bad neighborhood, that helped me a lot. And it's still, and still right now, I love to read and I love to challenge myself as much as I can. And that's part of life, man. And because of that, it made me who I am now.
Well, it's interesting. Those little things shape who you're going to be and the decisions you make for the rest of your life. So, Fred, what is something you loved about school besides watching those old VHS tapes in Ms. Gainey's office when you should have been probably doing history homework?
Well, Titus will get a kick out of this. When we were traveling together, I have a habit of getting to the building early, you know, because I get nervous, you know, I want to be able to just unwind and kind of get my bearings before the match. But growing up in middle school, I would always get to school super early. Like if kids are getting there at 7:30, I would get there like 6:15 in the morning, pitch black. I was a teacher's pet.
Your mom would let you get that early? I don't know about your mom dropping you off at 6:15.
Yeah. My mom, she was at the club, man. She wasn't worried about me at the time. She was at the club dropping it low. But I'd get there super early, and I was a teacher's pet. So like it was some kind of freedom for me to just be there with no other students there and like be able to kind of do whatever I want, help the teacher out, just learn and just build that relationship. So it would have to be the adults.
Amazing. And again, like I just want to reiterate too, obviously so many people look up to all of you and you inspire so many people. And I always, as an educator, I always like to tell people, I always tell my students about all my failures, all my insecurities, because people look at you and they assume you've been like this your whole life. They don't realize your journey, your struggle. And I think every one of you, if Disney does not reach out to you to turn your life into a biopic, they're foolish, because it's like every one of you has a story, which just, it gives me the chills, but also, I mean, I think those are lessons kids need to hear about perseverance and survival and fighting through things. And that, you know, if you're in a bad situation, that doesn't define you. You could come out of it. So thank you all for sharing those. And they were so, I mean, just so intense. And just as an educator, it just makes me reinforce why I care so deeply about my students. I'm going to call you guys now. We're going to do some personal questions. When I say personal, not too personal, but kind of focused on you and your accomplishments and your roles. I'm going to start with Fred. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. So obviously, and again, I always say this, it's as an educator, as someone who knows you, I couldn't be prouder of you. To me, you're a hero to not only me, but to so many students, because you did something that nobody, I mean, a lot of people probably would not do. It's just one of those things. When I do share your story with my students, it's so great to hear their insight and their feedback to why it's like, well, why would he do that if it would affect his career and his life? And it's like, because, you know, that's what trailblazers do. That's what people who want to live their life to the best they can. So I was always curious too about how long did you battle with that decision? I'm sure Titus was involved in some discussions about it, and what led you to finally make the decision to say, I just can't. And again, as a teacher, no child, it shouldn't require bravery for someone to be themselves, especially a young adult, but for some reason it still does. So at what point did you decide that this is what you're going to do and you're going to come out, obviously, and I know you did on TMZ as well?
Well, I'm 36. At 30 years old, I was just tired of living a lie. You know, I had met love in Miami, and I was just that double life. I just couldn't, you know, live anymore. Just think of your downest moment in your life and just times it by 10. That's how I was suffering, you know? And I came out when I came out, and it was the best decision I made. And, you know, I couldn't ask for a better support system with my family. You know, I always say, what's worse, accepting your son or daughter being gay, or accepting the fact that you had to bury them because that you couldn't accept the fact that they were gay? So I always put that perspective out there that, you know, you got to love your kids unconditionally, and having a gay mother made it a little bit easier for me, and having supportive family made it that much easier for me to come out and just be comfortable with myself. So I always say on my social media, if anyone in your family doesn't support you, be a part of my family on social media.
Absolutely. And I would say, as an educator, like, if I do everything I can to make sure every student walks in my class and knows that they're loved, they're accepted, and they're seen. And I think as an educator, it's our job. No child should feel unsafe. And it's just one of those things where when you did that, it was so inspiring and so I mean, just obviously, you're someone who I care deeply about and someone who I respect so much. So it was so great to kind of see you do that. Also, it's heartbreaking that I don't think I could live that life. I couldn't repress that or hide that. So the fact you had to do that, I mean, it hurts to hear. And I'm sure a lot of teenage kids are going through that right now. So thank you. You doing that, believe me, inspired so many kids to not have to go through that. So Titus, obviously, you and I have a lot of synergy in our belief system, and you just wrote your book, which I do have, which we discussed all the time on the phone. And it's like, as an educator, I'm an overly optimistic person. I have never met a bad kid in my life. And we've said this. We meet kids who make bad decisions, kids who don't have support, but there's no such thing as a bad kid. So obviously your experience in your childhood played into this, but what kind of led you to this? Because, I mean, educators, I think every teacher should read this book, because a lot of times nothing makes me more upset when I hear an educator talk negatively about a kid. First of all, there's no such thing as a lost cause when it comes to youth, but hearing an educator say something negative or not trying to find the positive in a child, they shouldn't be in education. So what led you, I mean, what kind of led you down this path to write this book, which to me says it all, and the title says it all. There is no such thing as a bad kid.
Well, aside from obviously my personal story, I've been very heavily involved in education for years, and reshaping lives, from various backgrounds for a very long time. And I just think that me being able to not only tell my story, but give a different perspective of how people should approach education, how they should approach coaching, how they should approach human beings, period. It was just a multitude of folks that say, man, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should, man, that was good. That was good. And then I was speaking engagement after speaking engagement. And then I just sat down one day and said, I'm going to go ahead and try to put my thoughts. I had to go back to Live Oak and relive some things. I had to go back to Boynton Beach and relive some things that I didn't really want to relive. I kind of wanted to sweep a lot of stuff under the rug. And I think it was very therapeutic for me to be able to write this book, because it put me in a place of a lot of these kids that I'm impacting now, and it put me in a place where I see the struggles of educators, especially those in Title I schools, and the importance of providing them with resources and giving them as many positive role models as possible. And especially in the Title I schools, I feel like they need more positive male role models at the elementary school level. They need more Black and brown math teachers and male teachers in general, especially at the elementary school level. In middle school, it was very impressionable ages. And for me, at 12, 13 years old, those were my big life-changing moments. And so having all this interaction, and then now 331 kids later helping to get to college over the last 10 years, it's just one of those things where you look at it and you say, man, like, I could, if I tell this story, and if I speak my truth, and if I put people in a certain position where they have to look at things differently and think differently, then hopefully we will be different. And that was my motivation. That was my inspiration behind it. It was not one key moment that said, all right, it's time for me to write this book now. It was several key moments throughout the last probably 10 to 12 years that just helped add to the story. And so that's the reason why it ended up coming out last August.
No, and thank you for that too. And it's again a narrative that every teacher needs to know, that when you champion your kids and you're there for them, it helps a lot. But also too, if a kid makes a bad decision, don't write them off as a criminal or a future criminal or so on. Try to find out why they made that decision and try to help them fix it, which I think not enough people do, especially if it's a kid of color.
A lot of times, and I've come to find this, that people always ask, what's wrong with you, in any situation. And nobody ever asked the question, what happened to you?
Yeah.
There was something that happened to individuals that made them think a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. And once you figure that out, you can say, oh, I understand. Okay. And so even dealing with racist people, you ask sometimes, why do you think that way? Why do you feel that way? Sometimes it's because that's what my mom told me, or sometimes it's because of them being bullied by a Black or brown kid or a white kid when they were young. I mean, it's a multitude of reasons. And once you start going through those layers, then you can understand things a little bit more and hopefully help that person heal as well.
There's always a reason why. Absolutely. Deonna, obviously, women have kind of taken a key role in the wrestling world, and it's so great to see. It's also, as a teacher too, it's like when you said your gym teacher encouraged you to kind of work out and wrestle, I'm trying to think if like a lot of the phys ed teachers I work with would have encouraged a young lady the same path. And honestly, I don't think they would have, which to me is also upsetting to think about. But obviously your success in the wrestling world, what else do you think needs to change in the wrestling world? And do you think we're making enough progress as far as giving female wrestlers the same platform, the same opportunities, and the same resources?
I think especially over probably the last 18 months and just some of the experiences that I've had inside of wrestling has really skewed my point of view on that. And I feel like women have, since I've been wrestling, which is just about 8 years now, I've kind of seen the growth from a WWE standpoint, from an independent standpoint, and then from these smaller, television companies that aren't as big as WWE. I've been through them all, and I've kind of felt the same issues throughout them all. And it's that women don't always feel like they have a voice. And women are quick to be labeled as difficult or problems or, worse words than that. The minute that they raise a problem and the minute that they stand up for themselves. And I feel like on screen, we are given the same platform as men now. We are strong, we are powerful, we are beautiful, we can main event WrestleMania, we can hold all these championships. But when it comes to the behind the scenes, we're not held to the same standards. So was just my experience over the last few years, just trying to stand up for myself and find that confidence and the ability to find a happy medium, to air my grievances and do it in a professional way, but also be respected for it. So as much emphasis, I feel like, as we put women being the same athletes as men, we need to give them the same mind as a man.
It makes perfect sense. And I mean, it's all, I think, are justified. And I think not only apply to wrestling, but sound like scenarios that happen in different environments in the workplace as well. Oh, thank you for sharing that. All right, Kayla. So how has being a wrestling correspondent made you a better journalist? And I have to imagine it's kind of like reporting from like the 50-yard line. So obviously you were a broadcast major. What led you into the wrestling world, and how has covering wrestling kind of helped you hone your skills as a correspondent?
Well, I mean, I think I can answer that question. Getting into wrestling, literally, that was never something that I thought in a million years I would ever do. I didn't know really what wrestling was up until about 4 years ago, being completely honest. It is probably the best experience I've ever had in my life and my professional career. I've made the best friends. But I was, I studied broadcast journalism. I worked at a news station for 2 years before WWE. But it all started, and I want to go this route because we're talking to educators and talking about students. When I was in the 4th grade is when I transferred into foster care, and we had public speaking. It was a 4-H. I don't know if you guys had 4-H growing up, but 4-H program, public speaking was one of the competitions. And for whatever reason, I was a new kid at the school. So you know what? I have to either choose that or have to sew. And I know I can't do a sewing contest. So I did a public speaking contest, and I got up in front of my classmates. None of them knew who I was. And I decided just to tell my story. It was my way of introducing myself. This is where I came from. This is why I'm all of a sudden here. And I won. First thing I've ever won in my entire life at that point. I won a purple ribbon. The first time adults ever looked at me and said they were proud of me. My foster parents had no idea I was even participating in public speaking. And I ran down my driveway like freaking Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, the golden ticket. Like, I got a purple ribbon. And then I just started competing and getting told, like, hey, you can do this. You're, and like all that to be said, like that was when I was 9 years old, and now almost 30 years old. This is that is why my path is here, because I have the educators believing in me and saying, wow, you're good at this and you can freaking do it. I won't talk much longer, but wrestling was a touchy subject because my friend Greg Hamilton, who is the Hudson Hamilton, one of those names, is the SmackDown ring announcer. And he called me one day. He was like, hey, we need a new ring announcer. Would you be interested in working for WWE? And I flat out said, absolutely not. The reason is because in those broken home situations, I associated WWE with my mother's abusive boyfriends, because anytime I came home from school, those abusive a-holes were getting drunk at 2 p.m. watching wrestling WWE on their screens.
Wow.
And so it was a trigger. I'm like, I'm not working for that place. And then kind of off of what Manny has said, you know what? These people always said I would never amount to anything. How great would it be for them to turn on their TV screens to watch the wrestling, and yours truly pops up on their TV screens, which is why I decided to take the job. And hold on, I just want to, you can't really see, I celebrated, these are my little balloons I made, 20 years in foster care the other day officially.
Amazing.
And 20 years I had the dream to be a broadcast professional. So
that's so incredible. So incredible. That's awesome. Oh God, thank you for sharing that. Kalisto, unmute yourself first.
Why do you keep doing that?
I don't know. It just happens.
I think he's got background noise. All right. Now, I do have a question in reference to, obviously, considering American fans are not really familiar with the world of Mexican wrestling. Can you describe it to the audience on how it differs from kind of American professional wrestling like WWE? So, because obviously you've been in both worlds. What is the major difference between the Mexican wrestling world and the American wrestling world?
First of all, I can say lucha libre is translated as free fighting. Lucha libre, it's an art style. It's like a ballet. It's an art. So in lucha libre, it's like a ballet, lucha libre aerial art that is really known in Mexico, and a lot of great fighters, wrestlers, pro wrestlers, Japanese, you name it, they go to Mexico to train and perfect their craft. That's where I perfected my craft, my lucha libre, even though I had basic training in Chicago for lucha libre, basic stuff. But the best lucha libre training is in Mexico. If you really want to learn how to fly, you really want to learn the technical llaveo, which is like technical free fighting style of chain wrestling, we call. It's its own art form. Japan has its own art form too for wrestling. Europe, they have their own style. WWE, they have their own style too. So, like when someone perfects their craft, like in different styles, imagine how good they're gonna be. So, lucha libre, it helps you expand more, and it helps you bring your body more alive. So when you're like, for example, when you're flying, it makes you, instead of flying like crazy, no, you fly, you open your body and you show the art, the way you're flying. Because when you fly, it's like a bird. When you see a bird fly, it spreads its wings and it looks beautiful. So that's what they teach you in Mexico. So not only they teach you awesome technical moves, but they teach you how to perfect your flying.
Amazing. I can say this with absolute certainty. If this was a group project and these are two different groups, Titus would be presenting for one group and Kalisto would be presenting for the other group, and they'd be competing with each other.
Team captain.
Kalisto's group will be beating his ass.
Right. Now we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna have a little pop quiz. It's not history related because obviously now I know Deonna would probably have an advantage since she's going to school for that. I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand like the cheesy high school aspect we have, and I'm gonna ask a question. If you know the answer, if not, I'm gonna call on you. It's gonna be rapid fire. First question, 3 pop quiz questions. All right. Which wrestler's signature move was the tombstone pile driver?
Oh, come on.
Kalisto.
Yeah, Undertaker.
All right, Undertaker. Good.
All right, go ahead.
All right, next question. What wrestler's real name was Terry Jean Bollet?
Hulk Hogan.
Deonna, Hulk Hogan, correct.
Oh,
I might as well be shout out.
Dang,
Last one. Which wrestler holds the record for most wins with 1,713 in WWE?
Titus O'Neil.
look at you.
I'm sorry, Titus?
Natalia.
No.
Really? I don't know.
Who's the winningest women?
John Cena.
John Cena. All right.
Maddie is the most winningest woman in WWE.
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, now I know. Now I know that. So I just want to, first of all, I want to thank everybody. I mean, it was obviously such a great panel, so inspiring, and I've no doubt the audience feels the same way. What I'm going to do is obviously I'll let you say goodbye and where the audience could follow you now, because now you have probably millions of teachers who are going to absolutely adore you and probably reach out to you to visit their classroom at some point. So Deonna, where can our audience find you?
Yeah, on Twitter and on Instagram at Deonna Purrazzo.
Perfect. Titus, where can the audience find you?
They can find me at Titus O'Neil, TITUSONEILWWE on Instagram and Twitter.
Or on Amazon. You could find them on Amazon. Kayla, where could they find you?
Kayla Braxton, WWE, Instagram and Twitter.
Perfect. Kalisto, where could they find you?
At Kalisto WWE on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find me also on Lucha Family on my own YouTube channel.
Perfect. And Mr. Rosser, where can they find you?
My Twitter, Instagram, my government name at Real Fred Rosser. Block the hate, and thank you to all my friends in the wrestling business for joining us. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much.
Nick, can I
thank you.
say this? Can I just say one last thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so I know that a lot of you are very, some of you are very scared, some of you are very anxious to get back to the classroom because you miss being in the classroom. But just keep in mind, as we said earlier, that there are a lot of kids that depend on you. There are a lot of families that depend on you. There are a lot of people that that have not got adequate meals throughout this whole time of pandemic. So I understand that there are some fears and concerns for your safety as well, and there should be. But just keep in mind that whole thing that drove you to teaching and the years that many of you worked so hard to get into this profession. There's some kid out there that's Kayla Braxton or Deonna or Titus O'Neil or Kalisto or Fred that you will impart words in, and you will show love, and you will show appreciation, and you will get them out of the ditch that they might possibly be in. And it'll be the greatest moment for you within them, for them to come back to your classroom. And you may not see the impact immediately, but you will see it down the line. Just like we sat here and talked about and reminisced about our teachers that made a significant impact in our life. Every last one of you out there have that same capability and have probably already made that impact on kids that you don't even realize and recognize. So even in the midst of COVID-19, you guys are the real superheroes. And like I said, regardless if you're going back to brick and mortar or e-learning, you're a tremendous asset to this world. And I can't thank you enough personally for the impact that you've made on thousands and thousands of kids' lives. So God bless you all, man, and keep being great.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
I couldn't have said that
Well
any
said,
better.
Titus. Well said. Well
I'm
said.
crying my eyes out. I'm crying.
I would like to say something for all the Spanish speaking teachers, bilingual. I would like to say this in Spanish. Le quiero agradecer a todos los maestros. Muchas gracias por el apoyo. Y más aparte, yo apoyo a todos ustedes por todo el buen trabajo que están haciendo por todos los estudiantes. Buen trabajo, siguen luchando, lucha, 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 porque ustedes son luchadores. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes, maestros, y yo sé que en el futuro todos los niños, todos los estudiantes van a ser buenos porque ustedes son los mejores. Muchas gracias a ustedes maestros, lucha, lucha, lucha.
Thank you so much. All right, that's it. Class is over. Everybody did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night to everybody in the audience, and hopefully we'll see you again next back to school.
All right.